Take a good look at the eggs your hens laid this week. If the shells are getting thinner, the yolks have gone a little pale, or production's been quietly slipping, I want you to ask yourself one question. How much bread are those birds eating?
Now, I'm not going to tell you bread is arsenic. It's not. The damage is slower than that, and quieter. It shows up in the egg before it shows up anywhere else. And an old feed man knows how to read what's in an egg. I know what some of you are already thinking. My grandmother threw bread to her chickens for 50 years, and every one of those birds was fine. You're probably right about that. But here's the piece that's missing. Grandma's hens most likely ranged a good-sized yard from sunup to sundown, scratching up bugs, worms, and green growth all day long. The bread was a small part of a big, varied diet. Most backyard flocks today run in a smaller pen with less room to range, and they eat more of whatever their keeper throws in. You change the situation, and bread starts taking up a bigger piece of the diet than anybody meant it to. I sold feed across a counter for 32 years. I saw what walked back in when feeding went sideways. I'm not guessing at any of this. This video is about one food, the most common free scrap most people offer their hens, and why it's quietly working against every egg those birds produce. I'll also show you what to put in its place, and none of it costs you a dime. Stay to the end, because I'll tell you the one mistake that wrecks most people's first try at fixing this, and it's not the one you'd expect. A standard slice of white bread runs somewhere around 8 to 10% protein. Your laying hens need their overall diet to land around 16 to 18% to lay well, hold their condition, and keep their feathers right. That's nearly double what bread brings. Feed a hen enough bread that it takes up a fifth or more of what she eats in a day, and her average protein intake drops, not because the feed changed, but because the bread crowded it out. Here's the part most people miss. Hens self-limit their food intake. They eat until they feel full, and then they stop. And they love bread. It's soft, it's easy, it goes down fast. So they eat it first, and they eat it fast. Then they eat less of the complete feed. The bag lasts longer. Most people look at that and think they're saving money. I looked at it from the other side of the counter for 32 years. I had a woman come in one January, good keeper, had her flock for years, knew what she was doing. Said her production had fallen off and she couldn't figure out why. She figured it was the cold. I asked what had changed. She said she had more time in winter, so she was out at the coop more, bringing things. The stale heels, the old sandwich bread, whatever had gone too far to use. The bag had been lasting longer, which she thought meant she was saving money. She was right that the bag lasted longer. She had the reason all wrong. Before I go further, if your hens range a good yard all day and bread shows up once a week, a slice or two, this video is not about you. The problem is a pattern. Regular, daily, generous bread as the main thing going over the fence. That's what we're talking about. My grandfather had an unspoken rule about the hen bucket. What went in it had to feed a hen. What didn't belong in it went to the compost. Nobody wrote that down. It was just obvious to him. That clarity got lost somewhere along the way. The egg is a mirror. The shell comes from calcium. The yolk gets its color from pigment compounds found in greens, corn, and plants like marigolds. The white is built from protein. Bread contributes nothing meaningful to any of them. So what you get, when bread starts crowding out real feed, is yolks going pale and washed out, shells going thin or dimpled, eggs running small, and production slipping across the whole flock, quietly, over weeks, until the basket is just a little lighter than it used to be. Every egg a hen lays while bread is taking up real space in her diet is a lesser egg than she'd otherwise lay. That's not drama, that's what's in the egg. I'll say this plainly, I saw that pattern every time feed prices climbed and people started stretching the ration with cheap carbs. A month later, they'd be back at the counter asking what was wrong with their shells. I rang up the bags they came back for. What I never once said, because I was standing behind a counter with bags to sell, was, go check what else you've been throwing in. I'm saying it now. Laying hens need their overall diet to stay around 16 to 18% protein, consistently. and they need roughly 4 grams of calcium every single day to put a solid shell on an egg. If that calcium isn't in the feed and it isn't in a free choice oyster shell feeder, the hen will pull it from her own bones. She'll do that for a while, then she'll stop laying. If there is no oyster shell sitting out free choice in your coop right now, stop this video. Go fill it. Come back. That one thing matters more than anything else I'm going to say today. Now, there's another layer to this that most people have never thought about. And when I get to it, you're going to think back to every moldy heel you've ever tossed over that fence. You don't feed fresh bread to chickens. You feed the stale stuff, the heel that's been sitting in the bag for 2 weeks, the end of the loaf that's dried out and gone hard, and stale bread molds. Most people figure mold is visible. You see the green spot, cut around it, problem handled. That's not how it works. Mold produces toxins, mycotoxins, before you can see any mold at all. By the time there's a spot on the surface, those toxins have already moved into the bread around it. What looks clean isn't clean. Cutting off the moldy piece and tossing the rest over the fence doesn't fix it. I saw this from the mill side. A contaminated grain lot, corn or wheat that had gotten wet or stored wrong, could hit a commercial flock fast. Feed refusal first, then production dropping, then birds looking rough in ways that didn't add up. The toxin was invisible, and it was doing real damage. Backyard flocks don't deal in those quantities, but the mechanism is exactly the same. A moldy heel 2 or 3 times a week across a winter is a slow, steady exposure, and a hen can't tell you what's wrong until she's already in trouble. I want to be plain about this. If you've been throwing bread with any mold on it to your birds, any at all, stop today and watch your flock closely for the next few weeks. If you see production fall sharply, birds going off their feed, or anything that looks off, a bird hunched up and still, shaking her head, not moving right, that's a vet call. Don't wait on it. My grandfather used to say, you don't feed the hens what you wouldn't eat yourself. That wasn't sentiment, that was husbandry. One more thing about bread, and I'll keep it short. Commercial bread is salty, somewhere around 400 to 600 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams. A chicken's diet shouldn't run above about 0.2% salt. Daily bread makes that threshold easier to cross than most people realize. Wet droppings first, and over time, quiet kidney strain. Not dramatic, not fast, just a slow drag on birds that should be doing better.
If an old feed man telling it to you straight is worth something, hit subscribe. I put one of these out most days. And the full never feed chart is in the playbook. Every food that doesn't belong in your bird's diet and exactly why, written plain. Print it and nail it inside the coop door. Links below.
Now, here's what you actually do. The instinct to not waste food is right. It's what kept flocks running on nothing bought for 100 years. The food in the bucket just needs to change. Start with vegetable trimmings and greens, cabbage cores, carrot tops, kale leaves, beet greens, outer lettuce leaves. The pigment compounds in dark greens are exactly what puts color in a yolk. In winter, hang a whole cabbage head in the coop at hen height. They'll work at it all day, and every bit of it is moving the diet in the right direction. The second swap is protein scraps. Cooked egg, scrambled, not whole, so the birds don't start connecting treat time to the nest boxes. Cooked meat trimmings. Mealworms if you've got them. These are what laying hens actually need more of. Most people are throwing that resource in the trash and feeding bread instead. If you have starchy leftovers, plain cooked oats or rice are a far cleaner choice than bread. No added salt, no mold risk if you give it fresh. Still mostly carbs, I'm not pretending otherwise, but they won't drag the diet the way bread does. One honest word, scraps are a supplement, not a ration. If what you're throwing in adds up to more than about 20% of your hen's total daily intake, watch the protein and calcium closely. Below that line, a varied mix of greens and protein trimmings is net positive for the flock. If your birds are used to bread and looking for it, don't taper, just redirect. Put something better in the same spot. They loved the bread because it was there. Give them hanging cabbage and scattered kale trimmings, and they'll be into that by tomorrow. Then watch the eggs. Give it 2 to 3 weeks. Shell quality, yolk color, production across the flock. The eggs will tell you whether it made a difference. Bread is the perfect free feed trap. It's already in the house. It feels thrifty. The birds go at it like it's the best thing they've ever seen. And it costs. Slowly, quietly, in the quality of every egg your flock produces. What got lost over the generations wasn't the instinct to use what the kitchen produced. It was the knowledge of what counted as real feed and what didn't. Here's what to do this week. 1. Pull the bread today, not eventually. Just pull it. 2. Check your oyster shell feeder before you do anything else. If it's empty or low, fill it now. 3. Reroute the kitchen scraps. Vegetable trimmings and greens go to the hens. Bread and anything processed goes to the compost. 4. Watch the eggs. Shell thickness, yolk color, how many you're pulling from the nest boxes each morning. Give it 2 to 3 weeks. The eggs will tell you the truth. Don't feel like you need to overhaul everything at once. Pull the bread, fill the shell feeder, swap in some greens. Start right there. The rest follows. Now I'll say what I say on this channel every time feeding comes up, because it matters more than any single tip I can give you. Cut that feed bill as hard as you like. I mean that, and I'll show you how to do it right. But keep the protein across your bird's full diet around 16 to 18%, and keep that oyster shell out free choice every single day. A hen you short on protein stops laying. A hen you short on calcium starts pulling what she needs from her own bones. And once she's doing that, you've already lost more than you saved. Being thrifty and being careless are two different things, and I spent 32 years watching people mix them up without meaning to. The people I respected most in 32 years at the feed store weren't the ones who bought the most. They were the ones who watched their birds closely. They weren't watching the price tag on the bag. They were watching the flock. That habit, more than anything you buy or anything you save, is what keeps hens laying year after year. Go look at your eggs this week. Really look at them. The shell, the yolk, the size. Pull the bread, swap in some greens and good kitchen trimmings, and come back and tell me what you see in 3 weeks. I'll be here, and the egg will tell you whether I was right. I'm Earl Tomlin, 32 years on the selling side of that counter, and I'm done pretending the bag is the only answer. Go check your flock, and while you're out there, take a good look in that scrap bucket.
Next time, I'll walk you through the kitchen scraps that actually add protein to your hen's diet for free, because most people are throwing that resource straight into the trash, and that's its own kind of expensive.